save taxes, but also build wealth, have a more proactive approach and really take control of your situation and stop getting hit by the IRS, take your expertise and help make things simple and help people out in a real way.
Madison, you're a certified public accountant with lots of amazing experience. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how on earth you became a certified public accountant?
That's an interesting story. For me, growing up in a household where income was kind of volatile, going up and down, I wanted something that was stable. So as I started venturing into college and looking at, what I would want to do for a career, I was told I would make for a good accountant. Not sure if that's a compliment or not. It's ventured into that world. I mean, once I did my internship, that really made me see myself to where I could be doing this for years. And what really got me into it, I guess more excited about it, was more of like the consulting, tax planning piece, really able to build that relationship with clients and kind of make the tax world for most people is a foreign language. So it's fun when you can take your expertise and help make things simple and help people out in a real way that's really beneficial, since taxes are one of our biggest expenses, if not the biggest expense in our lives. So that's the part that I really enjoy, what really got me into it.
Do you have a particular favorite client story or two which demonstrates for us your amazing expertise and how you not only help people understand their taxes, but actually make more money and pay less taxes while you're doing it? Madison.
Yeah, I got tons of examples. I think one just off the top of my head would be what we do is we do what we call a comprehensive consult, and we'll look at their prior 3 years tax returns. So there's been multiple times where just looking at their prior tax returns, we're able to amend it, get them, $10,000 refund. But one in particular, we had a lady who owned a bunch of real estate and she was managing all of her properties. She qualified as a real estate professional, but simply wasn't making the election, wasn't aware of it. So simply by just checking a box, making sure she's documenting stuff, we're able to save her over $10,000. And that was just with that one strategy. Even recently, one of my more newer favorite clients, he's a rock climber. He actually is a film producer, and he came in and just with looking at their prior tax returns and a few strategies, we're looking at saving over around like $40,000. So some of these is just simply structuring things properly, and other things they're simply just missing out on stuff or tax returns are being done wrong. So it's something to where you can see, taking your specialized knowledge and really making an impact on clients' lives, because 10, 30, 40 grand can be quite a bit of money for people. So that's kind of some instances where it's helpful. And that's just a few.
Well, you demonstrated your expertise just now. Where did that come from as far as in your industry and your expertise?
So I got my expertise. Oh, man. So I started my career at a big firm, one of the largest in Texas. And so the manager over me, when I was only 18 months in, decided to leave the job to go spend a little bit more time with her child and work somewhere else. And they didn't really replace her. Instead, they just threw this 18-year-old, or I saw was 25 or something, but only 18 months of experience into this role that I definitely was not prepared for. And it caused me to really grow up very quickly, which was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because I felt like I was able to grow a lot in that season. And then going from there to a smaller firm where they were very big on research, tax planning, consulting, to where I got to sit in on tons of meetings and just listen to people who have been doing this for 20, 30 years plus and watch their tax planning. And I would sit there and I would take notes. I had a full several pages of notes that I would take. And in my spare time, I would go and I would research. I would even stay up after work, stay late and be researching, because I'm one of those weird people who, if I don't understand something, I got to figure it out. So that's where I spent a lot of my time. And I knew if I did that in that season of my life, that would be beneficial later on. So I spent a lot of that time putting in the extra work, after hours. And so that's what kind of helped me grow there. And then I'm also part of a tax network that's a few hundred CPAs, lawyers, financial planners across the country who meet weekly to discuss strategies. We take tests. So it's a constant learning. I have a real drive to learn, and gotten trained by some really good people. And that's kind of where I guess it came from.
And how did you get so curious? Number one, commonly when folks have a whole bunch of stuff dumped on them, they either flourish or perish. How did you have that ethic to have that grit to go ahead and do the research, get the mentors and what have you? How did you come by that skill set?
Well, I think when it comes to grit, I have two older brothers. So I got beat up a lot as a kid, but yet I would never back down still and just keep on getting beat up. So I'm somebody who doesn't really quit. That's just not who I am. And I played college football. So also having to do school and football at the same time, you learn to kind of just grind through it. Same thing with pain when I was in high school. I played for a really small school. There was no such thing as injuries. Concussions weren't a thing. You just kept playing all through it. So you learn to be really tough. So when I got thrown into something like that, I think a lot of my life experiences prior to heading into the work environment had kind of prepared me for that grit, that toughness to where you just don't really quit. So once I got thrown into that, I think that mindset of seeing it more as an opportunity rather than crap, what just happened. So, yeah. Yeah.
And what do your parents think you do for a living?
Well, they're one of my clients, so they should know pretty well what I do. I'd say my dad would say it was a really good choice because of the stability, because taxes will always be around. If you're a CPA, you can get a job, in a lot of different areas. So it opens up a lot of doors for you. So my parents are pretty happy with the choice that I made. Yeah.
And since you had two older brothers, are they also CPAs?
No, they're they stay away from from that route. Oldest brother's he does film production, very good at that. And then the other brother, he was a football coach, high school teacher, but just got out of that. Now working at a different job. Yeah.
What do people most misunderstand about what you do as a certified public accountant, Madison?
I would say there's like three responses when I tell people that I'm an accountant or I'm a CPA. And one of the first responses that I get from people out of those three, one of them is they sometimes think that I work for the IRS. So I'll get kind of like a dirty look that I'm trying to help government. They don't realize that I'm, trying to help taxpayers save money. They think that you actually work for somebody else. I think one of the other misconceptions is I'll always hear, well, you must be good at math. Well, sure, I can do basic multiplication and division and, subtraction, all that kind of stuff, but I have a calculator. Really, I wouldn't say I'm that great at math. Really, when it comes to taxes, it's more about knowing the tax law and being organized and knowing how to apply the law to a person's situation. That's really what it's more about. So a lot of people have that misconception that to do accounting, you have to be really good at math. I would say you actually don't.
And when you're discussing with your contemporaries around the country and you discuss cases, I am guessing, how do you keep that confidential so no one gets identified and no confidential information gets disclosed, Madison?
Yeah, well, you can redact information on tax returns if we ever want to look at specific cases. Usually we're talking about certain cases that we're working on, but we don't mention names. We don't mention, sometimes there'll be some fake stuff in there, but you just have to be careful with like not mentioning their specific names or obviously where they live. So it's not too difficult. Typically you're just focusing on the issue at hand and the strategies around it, which you can do without providing any, specific information about the
And
client.
of late, what is the most bizarre case you've heard with that group?
Man, bizarre case. I mean, I don't know about bizarre. I mean, I have had some bizarre cases in the past with theirs. You just get some, I think actually even yesterday we were discussing one, something to do with, there's about the soil. If you're a farmer, which we don't do a whole lot of farm stuff, but if the soil is a certain type, they can come in and do a study on that soil. And then you can get an extra write off for that soil. So I thought that was interesting, something I hadn't heard of, just learned that yesterday. Most people in the group had never heard of it. So that was something that we were talking through yesterday. So it was a
And
very,
that brings a very, very, very interesting point up where every one of us has a certain level of expertise and we're kind of locked in our own favorite little silo. And we get really good at digging underneath that silo to see what's down in there. But every once in a while, someone comes up with a whole different field of study, pun intended.
yeah.
And I remember once going to a farmers and ranchers CPA gathering in Texas because one of my clients at the time when I was a tax guy rather than a financial guy owned racehorses and a farm and exotic cattle that were artificially inseminated. And the cattle were like to the shoulder about as tall as I am, about 5.5 feet tall and monstrously fit. And and he ran a cattle auction where we got to meet some Rockefellers and some other people like that because those people love trading coins, trading cattle, and what have you. So, in terms of that, picked up that you've been able to actually use for your own clients from that study group.
And things like that. Oh man, there's a ton of stuff. I think one that's a pretty more basic one is a specific strategy would be like the short-term rental loophole is a very specific strategy where they really walk you through step by step, every little detail. Here's the mistakes. Here's the issues. And then I think also with like real estate professional status is very misunderstood. We do a lot of work in the real estate industry. So that
Just for fun, why don't you tell everybody who doesn't understand what the heck that means as a term, what that specifically means, Madison?
real estate professional status. Okay. So that's just somebody who you've met the two requirements to be what's called a real estate professional, which is the first requirement is that you spend 51% or more of your time. So the majority of your work time in a real property trade or business. And the code lists about 11 different industry types that qualify for that real property trade or business. And then you also spend at least 750 hours doing real estate activity. So that makes you a real estate professional, which a lot of people think that that's all you have to do in order to get the tax benefits. But that's just kind of the first step. And that's where people get caught. So there's a whole lot more to it if you actually want the benefits of it. Becoming a real estate professional, kudos, does nothing for you unless you do an extra step for that.
What's the extra step?
So you got to own rental properties. So let's say you're a real estate agent and you obviously your primary job is real estate. You meet the 750 hours, all that kind of stuff. So you're a real estate professional, but you also need to own rental properties that you spend at least 500 hours or more in. And what you can do is you can make what's called a -9 election, such in section 469. You make this -9 election, and it says, hey, all of my rental properties together, they are one conglomerate. They all are together. And what that does, that allows you then, as you manage those properties, that you just have to get 500 hours on all of your properties combined. If you don't make that election, it means you have to get 500 hours essentially on every single property managing one, each of them. So to basically reduce the hour requirement to get that 500-hour limit. And there's obviously caveats to all this, but to get that 500-hour requirement makes it easier when you make that -9 election to group all of your properties together. And that way you can easily reach that limit. I mean, what that basically is saying that I materially participate. In other words, I'm actively involved in the operations of my rentals. And then that allows you to take any depreciation from those properties and offset it against your W-2 or business income. So this is a way that a lot of wealthier people will actually use real estate losses to offset their business income. But you've got to meet those requirements to be a real estate professional and what's called materially participating in your rental properties.
And I know when you say the code, you mean the Internal Revenue Code. But
Yes.
some of the listeners might not know that's the Internal Revenue Code. And who the heck makes that? Anyways, did the IRS just make up those rules?
No, it's got to go through Congress, get passed, and then we're all abiding by those rules. So the IRS has to abide by those rules. We have to abide by those rules. And that's where you can get some fun little differences in interpretation sometimes about what those rules that have passed mean, to where you will see the IRS is wanting it to mean this certain thing, and CPAs are saying it means another certain things. And that's where you get court cases to kind of solve those issues. So yeah, doesn't
So
just get to make it up.
in addition to the Internal Revenue Code, is there something called regulations?
Oh, yeah. Regulations, there's court cases, there's all sorts of stuff and there's even the IRS will put out even things like fact sheets or things that are not authoritative, but they say, here, here's how we're interpreting it or would like you to do. So there's all sorts of stuff that comes out that you have to be aware of and sift through, which makes it a little bit more difficult.
Thank you, Madison. And once again, demonstrating your expertise. Kind of to switch gears a little bit, what motivates or what makes you feel inspired each day in what you do?
Man, for me, it's really the aspect of getting to help clients. So believe it or not, punching numbers into a software is not the most exhilarating thing, but getting to actually talk with clients, see where they're at in their business, what are their pain points. Sometimes those are pain points that fall into my lane and I can help. Other times it's stuff that falls outside of my lane, but then I'm able to introduce them to somebody who is able to help with those. So for me, every day waking up, what motivates me is more that being able to actually genuinely help clients with their business. Just doing tax returns to me is not that exhilarating. It's more of the piece of genuinely getting to see, hey, the advice that I'm giving them is actually helping. And then getting to see a lot of that feedback that you get from clients, how appreciative they are of like, hey, you're really helping me in my business, helping me in my life. So you can really have a big impact with it. That's the part that's fun.
And with
That's
that in
it.
mind, since you
Yeah.
talked about people appreciating what you're doing, what's the best compliment you'd like to share with us that clients have given you of late?
Man, I had a guy maybe 2 months ago. He went through our kind of comprehensive consult process. And I mean, he kind of started just raving a whole lot. I was kind of like, all right, you can calm down. But he was saying that he'd been looking for this for a decade. He's gone through several consults kind of like that in the past where he spent a bunch of money and felt like he didn't get anything out of it. So he said this was the first time where he felt like he actually, got his investment, what he invested for the money. And so he was super stoked, super happy and became our client. So we're walking through some other issues that he's going through with selling a business and stuff. But he was over the moon about, man, this is great. And I think for us, pretty much all of our clients that we get, our biggest referral source is our own clients that they then go and refer. So to us, that's a big deal. If like your own clients are referring their friends to you, that means that they trust you and they want their friends to get in on this as well. So that's a big testament to us and important.
And in terms of your personal life, how does this positively impact or deter your personal life?
Man, I've been dealing with that more recently of trying to figure out. I think in the CPA world, every firm likes to say, oh, you get work life balance. Every firm promises that. Doesn't always happen. So I think it's different being the business owner than it is being an employee. So there's other aspects that come with being a business owner. I think right now we're kind of going through some changes, trying to get some other softwares implemented to kind of help alleviate that, create a little bit more work life balance. So it can definitely be a struggle at times, especially during tax season when everybody's wanting their taxes done. But I would say outside of tax season, there are a lot of opportunities in the summer, especially the winter, where you definitely get Thanksgiving, Christmas off, get to spend time with family. But there can definitely be some struggles at times to get some of that work life balance. So
And
it
how
can
do
be
you
both
and
a
your
positive and negative.
how do you and your firm work with financial advisors?
We love financial advisors because what we do is we like to go through and help people see, hey, like let's just say they're a business owner, they don't have a retirement set up, could be saving a lot of extra money. We're not going to go set up that retirement fund for you. We're not going to invest that money for you. But hey, I have some good financial advisors you can go visit and they can help you do all of those aspects. So it's kind of like, here's what needs to happen, but then I can't set it up for you. So I can take you by the hand you off to a financial advisor, and then vice versa. The financial advisor isn't going to do the tax return. So it works really well where we're kind of, I think, giving more of a full encompassing approach because the financial advisor is doing a lot of work that I can't do. And I'm doing a lot of work that the financial advisor can't do. So it's really nice when you have two people, both professionals are on the same page about what's going on. It can really implement a full broad approach for that client on all their
Have you ever
financial.
had a client complain to you about their financial advisor, and how did you resolve that?
Yeah. Yeah. That comes up sometimes. I'd say most people are pretty happy with their financial advisor, but sometimes not. Or I can tell that they could be getting more for what their financial advisor is doing. And so typically I like to then, try and introduce them if they're open to a different financial advisor that I know and work with. So that way they're not stuck with somebody that they're not, or if we're not on the same page, with what I'm telling them and what financial advisor is telling them, then that could create some issues. So try to work with those people that I know and trust and have a good relationship with.
Along those lines, I got a call from one of my CPA buds one time, and he described to me and to JJ to my ideal client, no kidding, who happened to be with a big name brand, now a wholly owned subsidiary of the Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. And for 5 years, he had been giving her a hard time about the lack of return. Her daughters were giving a hard time about that. And the guy over at Merrill Lynch was kind enough to give them a beautifully multicolored, embossed copy of what her portfolio had done. And the daughter said, if you look at the back page and see the turnaround in her assets, I think he had a Porsche payment that he needed to make that month. I said, how adroit of you. And I said, the most amazing part about this report is that they actually were kind enough to give it to you to document the overwhelming lack of performance. And I said, and since you're a very bright person and your husband was a number 2 guy in a major oil company, how did this happen to you? And she said, well, he was a tall, good looking guy, wore nice suits and gave me chocolate. I said, okay, I'm 5.5 feet tall, so I'll have to stand on a bench to look tall. I have nice suits. If I brought you chocolate, do you think we could do business? And she laughed and said, yeah, you don't have to do any of that. I just like to make some more money and actually trust the person I'm working with. So we have run into that, no kidding. So in terms of your family, what kind of fun things do you get to do with your family to let everybody know that there is work and there is family in your life too?
Well, I'm a single guy, so no, wife, no kids, nothing like that. So when it comes to family, I do have 6 nieces and nephews. So I get to do the fun uncle duties of getting to play with them. And then when stuff starts getting rough, I'm going to bed for the night. So I do enjoy being with them. Well, we do celebrate most holidays together. I'm pretty close with my family. So I'll get some time, try to visit my grandma, once a month or so. But that's about the extent of family time is when it comes to that.
And kind of a funny question. If you could have a fantasy dinner with someone who's alive or dead, what 3 people would be at your dinner?
Yeah. Well, definitely Paul. I have some questions for him to help clear up some, theological issues.
You're talking about Saul of Tarsus that later became St. Paul. Okay. Yeah.
Correct, correct. Man, 3 people. I think probably my grandpa on my mom's side. He was a small business owner, owned a hardware shop that everybody knew growing up. So would like to hear more of, now that I'm a small business owner, would like to hear more of his experience, some of those things. And then I think for me, I mean, you could cop out and say Jesus. I think most people would like that. I think I could go with somebody like a Tim Tebow, because growing up, I was a huge Tim Tebow fan, so kind of hear more. I think that would be an interesting person to talk to.
Yeah, the default question is when someone answers that and tells you nothing about themselves, it's Einstein, Jesus, and I forget who the other person is. So thanks for answering that honestly. JJ, do you have a couple more questions you'd like to
Yeah,
ask?
well, the grandpa highlighted for me because both mine passed away with either before I was born or when I was young. So getting to sit down with granddad to get some conversation would also be a pleasure for me as well. So definitely identify. Not that I don't identify with the other two, but definitely that resounded or really stood out for me as far as that goes.
What's the best advice you ever got, Madison?
Man, the best advice that would probably be from that I've heard, Josh McDowell. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what he
Uh-huh.
says. So I think whether it's in like theology, apologetics world, which I'm very into, or taxes, I think a lot of time people that get very into a niche area can talk right over people's heads. So you have zero impact on the listeners. So I think it's important to keep it simple so that people can really understand what
I
you're saying.
smile like that because I used to give seminars for the Kroger company in terms of their regional headquarters, and I would invite an attorney to come talk too. And the attorney would just have a regular conversation with me, and then they would get up and do a great imitation of a wooden India. And finally, after watching somebody do that twice, I said, let me try and explain something to you. When you go into all that technical stuff, people don't understand a word you said and they cannot wait to get out of there. So if you actually want to do business and help these people, would you just make it as simple as humanly possible and just say, you take your stuff over here, we put it in an envelope so the government can't get at it. I mean, that's how uncomplicated estate planning is. Have a nice day. So if you can just say that out loud, we always tell people, if you can't remember anything else, we'll help you have more money and pay less taxes. That's it. That's our objective.
It leads into a great question as far as the keep it simple, stupid. If you had advice for your 20-year-old self, or maybe other 20-year-olds at this point, what advice would you give?
Man, that's a pretty tough one. I think I probably would have started putting a little bit more of my retirement a little bit earlier as you see that building up. But I think I would have. I mean, I'm in a seminary part time right now. I wish I had actually started a little bit earlier. If I didn't realize I was going to do that, but I think if I could go back now, I would have actually started a little bit earlier, so that at this point I would be done. And I think, I mean, yeah, that's probably. I mean, most of the stuff I feel like I did a pretty good job of. So I feel like I did a decent job at 20.
So you didn't get arrested.
Didn't get arrested. No,
Congratulations. And I'm not going to ask if you have a tattoo because that's a much too personal a question.
I don't. I don't.
So you said you played football. Do you have any recurring regrets about that or injuries that you can always tell when the weather's changing?
Well, I'm not quite to that age yet where I can feel it, but I'm sure I will. With in terms of the weather changing, I do have plenty. I got plenty of injuries, so that's those. I didn't really break things. I just tore things. So that kind of happened. But in terms of regrets, I mean, even to this day, I went into a lot of student loan debt to play football. Went through a lot of injuries, all that stuff, and I would still say it was all worth it. I enjoyed a lot of the teammates that I met, a lot of the memories that I have that to me is priceless. Dreaming of playing college football. So I don't really have any regrets other than some games that we lost that I wish I could have back. But outside of that, no, I don't really regret it. Even with all the injuries and stuff, to me, it was still all worth it.
So between your work and your study and your being the fun uncle, what else do you do for fun?
You're talking to the wrong guy if you're talking for fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really just school and my part-time seminary work. I enjoy working out, so I like to do workouts every morning. But outside of that, I do a lot of volunteer type stuff. So right now, I volunteer with fourth graders. I lead the basketball club, so that's always interesting, especially when you forget some things. So when you say that the score is 6-7 and the entire gym erupts because of that whole 6-7, and they all freak out. You forget stuff like that. So it keeps you feeling young because you stay up to date on some of the lingo and stuff. But yeah, I really enjoy the volunteering aspect. Got some other volunteer stuff that I do, but yeah, that's kind of what I do for fun.
It's
And if you
also
had one piece of advice you'd like to let everybody know about you, and why they should do business with you, what would that be? What that message be?
Yeah. With us, it's really just comes down to if you want to save taxes, but also build wealth, really take control of your situation rather than waiting till, hey, once April comes, I'll find out what I owe in taxes and I'll pay, the IRS. Instead, if you want to have a more proactive approach and really take control of your situation and stop letting the IRS take control of you, then there's a whole lot of strategies available to you. So what we do is we help you have that proactive thinking. So if you're tired of being on the sidelines, kind of just getting hit by the IRS, then we'll help you hit back and be proactive.
And JJ, what advice do we normally give clients and potential clients?
Definitely, it's the goodness variety of things, but one, it's the bringing your professional experts together. That's why we partner with CPAs, attorneys, and other specialists, so that exactly as Madison demonstrated today, is someone who eats, sleeps, and breathes that one question that keeps them up at night because they want to know more and how to serve their clients better, to be able to understand it in a greater way. Those are the type of professionals that we partner with, which is how I initially met Madison in the first place. So it's been a pleasure to get to visit, to hear some of the fun stories along the way, the fun uncle, and the other activities that you're involved with, and of course, the expertise that you demonstrated. People should schedule that consultation to see how they can benefit from that as well.
That in mind, I think we always like to, no kidding, offer an opportunity to say a prayer for folks. And if you love that, that's great. And my Jewish friends and I have lunch together. I'm going to say a Christian prayer. You'd be saying say a Jewish prayer. No kidding. And we even have some Muslim clients. No kidding. And we chat with them on a friendly basis too. So we have no particular prejudice on that. So JJ, why don't you close us in a word of prayer?
Sure, definitely. Thank you for John. Thank you for Madison. Thank you for our families. Thank you for the clients that we serve and the communities that we volunteer and are a part of. Thank you for each day as a gift from you. Continue to lead us and guide us. And I thank you for continue to expand those that we're able to impact in Christ's name. Amen.